LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels announced his decision that he will opt out of the ReliaQuest Bowl on New Year's Day. And look, I am the first person that would line up to watch Jayden Daniels play in an LSU uniform. But this is the right decision for him. And I also think it's the right decision for you as well.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome into Locked On LSU. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube as well. Just search Locked On LSU in the search bar, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified as soon as episodes of Locked On LSU drop. I'm Caroline Fenton. I'm your host, as I am every single day. And today we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Well, the announcement that we were all waiting for, but I think the announcement that we really all expected, or at least the announcement that you should have expected, Jayden Daniels announced his decision that he will opt out of LSU's bowl game against Wisconsin in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa on January 1st. Look, if you didn't expect this decision to be made, if you expected Jayden Daniels to play in the bowl game, then honestly, I don't know what to tell you. I think we all expected this. I would have been shocked. I would have been floored if Jayden Daniels had decided to come back to play for the bowl game. Look, I would have been thrilled. Like I said, I love watching Jayden Daniels quarterback for my team. I will miss the days of watching Jayden Daniels compete in the purple and gold. But at the end of the day, this is a business decision for Jayden Daniels. He put out a really cool video on social media, kind of recapping his time at LSU. He said, LSU made me fall in love with the game of football again. We had some bumps and bruises along the way. We weren't able to achieve the ultimate goal, which of course is winning a national championship. But he talks about how Baton Rouge is home, how LSU is home, and it will continue to be home. I thought it was a great kind of homage to LSU and what LSU gave him and what Jayden Daniels gave LSU. So if you haven't got an opportunity to watch it, I highly recommend you go to his Twitter and you check out that video, his tribute to LSU. Now, Brian Kelly spoke with the media today on Monday, so we'll have a full recap of that on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU. But he did say that Jayden Daniels will be going to the bowl game. He just won't be playing. He said that he wanted to be there to support his teammates, to watch his teammates compete, which I think is just kind of an ode to the kind of person, teammate, and competitor that Jayden Daniels is. And look, we live in a different age of college football, and for so many reasons. We're living in an era where it's like you can pay the players. We're living in an era where you can transfer freely. This is a completely different time. With that comes completely different perspectives about bowl games. I understand that there are probably a lot of LSU fans out there, fans, just football fans in general, that get frustrated about players opting out of bowl games. That bowl games don't mean anything anymore. I understand where you're coming from, but this is the best decision for Jayden Daniels for a few reasons. One, he's not going to risk an injury. And I understand that you risk an injury every day that you get up out of bed and you walk out of your front door. You could trip and fall coming out of the bathtub. You could walk outside of your front door and slip walking down the stairs. Knock on wood. Any myriad of things can happen on or off the football field. But Jayden Daniels has the opportunity to make millions of dollars. Jayden Daniels is getting first round buzz. If he goes out and plays in the ReliaQuest Bowl, which, to be honest, it's a game that doesn't really mean anything. It's a game that, you win it. Well, great. That's 10 wins for LSU this season. That's a ReliaQuest Bowl victory. But what does that really do for you in the program? I hate it that we're now living in an era of college football where bowl games don't really mean anything if you're not playing in the college football playoff. But that's the reality of where we are. that Jayden Daniels is a first round draft pick, that Jayden Daniels could be a top 10, top 15 pick in this upcoming NFL draft. All of that would be completely flushed away if he goes out and plays the ReliaQuest Bowl and, knock on wood, tears an ACL, breaks an ankle, sprains a wrist, like whatever it might be. There is inherent risk involved every single time you step out on the football field. It's a tough game. There's no need to risk an unnecessary risk. And that would be risking injury playing in the bowl game. Matt Corral. I used to quarterback Ole Miss. Ole Miss, first 10-win season in school history. This was the 2021 season. First 10-win season in Ole Miss football history. Matt Corral plays in the Sugar Bowl. He suffers a high ankle sprain. And if you remember that game, it was Ole Miss Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. It looked a whole lot worse than a high ankle sprain. Matt Corral ultimately ended up falling to either the third or the fourth round in the 2022 NFL draft. So I don't know. Had Matt Corral been completely healthy, would be a second round pick instead of a third or fourth round pick. I don't know. But I know for a fact that if Jayden Daniels, let's say, knock on wood, tears his ACL in the ReliaQuest Bowl, he's no longer going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. That's millions of dollars of difference. So for Jayden Daniels, he doesn't risk that injury. And the second thing is, nothing can really nothing can really help Jayden Daniels' draft stock at this point. There's nothing that he can do, or close to nothing that he can do in a bowl game against Wisconsin that can completely shift the trajectory in a positive way of his draft stock. Everything that he's needed to prove to NFL general managers and to NFL scouts, he's already done that. He already won the Heisman Trophy. The only thing that he could do, honestly, I think, is hurt his draft stock, whether it's a bad game, which I wouldn't expect, or an injury. But really, what else is there for Jayden Daniels to prove? You're not going to win a national championship. I think that's the one goal that has been left unattained by Jayden Daniels and this team. Playing in the bowl game isn't going to give you a national championship. You won the Heisman Trophy. You had a heck of an individual season. And you are now projected to be a first-round draft pick. There's really nothing that Jayden Daniels can do to skyrocket his stock to the top of the NFL draft. And like I said, you're not this bowl game. Am I going to watch? Yes. Am I going to enjoy it? Absolutely. Because I'm going to watch and enjoy close to every single LSU football game that we watch. Some are more painful than others, but we watch them nonetheless. Am I still going to watch a bowl game that essentially doesn't really have a whole lot of meaning? Yeah, because it matters. Because we love this sport and we love this team. Because getting to a 10-win season for Brian Kelly's second year at LSU, 2 years in a row, that means something. That's important. So absolutely. But when it comes to Jayden Daniels as an individual, when it comes to Jayden Daniels and his ability to make millions of dollars off of his ability, when it comes to Jayden Daniels and his draft stock and his individual value, this game means nothing. So it was the right decision for Jayden Daniels to make. But it's good for Jayden, but I also think it's good for us. And I will explain why coming up next after a couple of words from our sponsors. I want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, rolling along here on Locked On LSU, opting out of the bowl game, which of course is Jayden Daniels' announcement on Monday, is the best thing for Jayden Daniels. I also think it's the best thing for you. And I also think it's the best thing for me because I think it's the best thing for LSU football. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Watching Jayden Daniels play in an LSU uniform is always going to be a blast. Now, look, I would take any opportunity to watch Jayden Daniels play for this team. But how does that necessarily set you up for success in the future? I think it's the best thing for LSU football because we get to see Garrett Nussmeier. We get to see a peek behind the curtain of who we believe is going to be the captain of this ship for the 2024 season, possibly even the 2025 season. That you are now going to get an opportunity to see what Garrett Nussmeier has got. That Garrett Nussmeier now gets the opportunity to play in his first start as an LSU Tiger, which is wild to think about because it feels like we've seen enough of Garrett Nussmeier to kind of, at least it tricks my mind into thinking that surely he's started a game at least once over the last 3 years. No, this would be Garrett Nussmeier's first start in an LSU uniform. That's what's best for LSU, is to see what he's got. It's best for Garrett Nussmeier to get some work in an actual in-game setting. Because you can do as much as you want in spring. You can do as much as you can in the spring game or in fall camp. You can try and recreate what a real game would look like. But you and I both know it's nearly impossible to recreate what an actual game looks like. It's good for Garrett Nussmeier to get that full rotation in because Garrett Nussmeier's seen the field plenty of times. I mean, heck, Garrett Nussmeier went in the SEC championship game against the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Like, this is not some inexperienced, itty bitty young true freshman. No, this is a guy who's played some quality snaps in the Southeastern Conference. However, going into this game, knowing that you are the guy, that's what's new. It's equally impressive that Garrett Nussmeier has been able to come off the bench cold and made some of the plays that he's made. I'm looking at that. Remember that long touchdown pass against Georgia in the SEC championship game last year? I mean, it was like a Sports Center top 10 kind of play. But it's a completely different preparation process, a completely different mental aspect of the game to know that you are going into that game when you are part of the game plan, when you're going into it knowing that the entirety of the game is on your shoulders. That Garrett Nussmeier now gets that experience. And I think that makes you and makes him that much better going into 2024, that he kind of gets that opportunity to kind of knock the nerves off. And I don't want to say that it's in a game that doesn't matter, because every game matters, that winning 10 games matters. Ending the 2023 season with the win, whether it's in the ReliaQuest Bowl, whether it's in the Sugar Bowl, whether it's in the whatever bowl you want to pick, I think that matters, ending on a win. Ending the season on a good note and going into 2024 on a positive note. Those things matter. But he now has that luxury of getting that first start, not against USC in Vegas, because that's going to be a pretty intimidating environment in your first game in 2024. But what do we want to see from Garrett Nussmeier? Of course, assuming Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the starter. Brian Kelly didn't announce it. You know it. I know it. He's going to be the starter. Garrett Nussmeier is, now that Jayden Daniels has opted out. First and foremost, I just want to see Jayden Daniels. I'm gonna say that a few times. Cut me some slack here. I want to see Garrett Nussmeier make some plays. I want to see them cut the leash and let him loose. That's what he does best, right? Garrett Nussmeier, gunslinger. That's his mentality. That's kind of the reputation that precedes him. I want to see him go out there and make some plays. But what does that look like against Wisconsin? I'm not going to act like I'm any sort of genius or expert on the Wisconsin Badgers football team. I think I've watched all of maybe two, three Wisconsin games this season, but we will chat with the host of Locked On Badgers ahead of this bowl game, so you'll get a full peek behind the curtain of what exactly makes this Badgers team tick. But Wisconsin has the 44th ranked run defense in the country, allowing just shy of 140 yards per game, 26th ranked pass defense, averaging just shy of 200 passing yards per game. That's pretty good. Pretty good pass defense there. But a couple things to keep in mind when looking at how that defense ranks up against the rest of the country, is looking at how that schedule ranks up against the rest of the country. Wisconsin played the 65th ranked strength of schedule. I mean, Wisconsin Wisconsin hasn't really played anybody. It look at their schedule for the 2023 season. Buffalo, Washington State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Rutgers, Iowa. Iowa's the worst offense in America. Illinois, Ohio State is the toughest game in their schedule. And they rounded it out with Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Like Wisconsin, they played Ohio State, and that's really, honestly, that's about it. So take those rankings with a grain of salt. Take this conference with a grain of salt. That the Big Ten isn't necessarily known for spread it out, throw it deep, air raid kind of offenses. No, Iowa is the butt of the joke of college football. Okay, their offense, at least their defense, is legit. Their offense is literally a running joke across college football circles. So keep that in mind that yes, Wisconsin has a great defense on paper, and I am not going to pretend that I know enough about Wisconsin to say that that is reflective of their defense or if it's not. But keep in mind who they have played. So let's look at the best team on their schedule. Ohio State. Kyle McCord, 17 of 26 for 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions when they played Wisconsin earlier this year. Wisconsin was able to turn one of those 2 interceptions into a field goal. So they had 2 turnovers, they turned into 3 points. As a team, Ohio State rushed for 180 yards. Travion Henderson alone rushed for 162. Marvin Harrison had himself a day, 6 receptions for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Reminder, Malik Neighbors is playing in this game. So I'm looking at what Ohio State, probably the most comparable offense to LSU's, which, of course, keep in mind, this offense is going to look different without Jayden Daniels. It is. It's going to look different with Garrett Nussmeier. But I would say the most comparable offense to LSU's was Ohio State's, and Ohio State was able to run the football down Wisconsin's throat. It was able to air the ball out to their best playmaker in Marvin Harrison. So that's what I want to see. Is a Wisconsin defense that I think is good, not great. I want to see Garrett Nussmeier make plays. The second thing, I want to see him take care of the football. That is one thing with Garrett Nussmeier, is of the limited sample size that we do have of him over the last 3 years of his LSU career. He has a tendency to turn the ball over, has a tendency to put the ball into harm's way. Now that's the double-edged sword of having a quarterback that is so willing and able to throw the deep ball. Is you're gonna throw interceptions. You're gonna turn the ball over. High risk, high reward. But now that he's taking over the starting job and that you're handing Garrett Nussmeier the keys to your car, you can't be averaging a turnover or 2 a game. You're not going to win very many games that way, especially in an SEC that just got that much more difficult, that just got that much more competitive. I want to see Garrett Nussmeier take care of the football against Wisconsin and continue to do it throughout spring practice, fall camp, and the beginning of next season. I'm excited to see Garrett Nussmeier, though. I'm genuinely so excited to see how he carries himself, how he takes on this challenge, and how he takes on this role. Filling the shoes of a Heisman Trophy winner cannot be easy. But Garrett Nussmeier, it feels like he's got the moxie to do it and to take it on wholeheartedly. I have to give Garrett Nussmeier a whole heck of a lot of credit for sticking around at LSU when it could have been really easy for him to transfer away. So I'm incredibly excited to see what the Garrett Nussmeier era looks like, because we're getting the first look at that, the first look at the Garrett Nussmeier era at LSU. More Locked on LSU coming up next. All right, we're going to see Garrett Nussmeier against Wisconsin in the ReliaQuest Bowl on New Year's Day. And we're going to do a full bowl game preview next week on the podcast. So I know everyone's going to be traveling for Christmas. You're going to be with your friends and family, but don't you worry because there's still going to be Locked on LSU content. So we'll do full bowl game previews. What I want to see from Garrett Nussmeier: make some plays, take care of the football. Don't make silly mistakes. When you want to make those big splashy plays, turnovers unfortunately are an inherent part of that. But I want to see, how has Garrett Nussmeier evolved his game? We know the arm is there. We know the deep ball is there. But how has he married that with maybe using his legs a little bit more, maybe making better decisions in the passing game? Super excited to see that. But there's another thing that I want to see in the bowl game, and it has everything to do with Garrett Nussmeier, but it's completely out of his control. And it's, I want to start to see Garrett Nussmeier build that chemistry with these young, unproven playmakers. These young playmakers that we haven't really gotten an opportunity to see any of or very little of. Malik Neighbors is playing in the bowl game. That is something that cannot be, you cannot it can be an oversight, Malik Neighbors, you're going to get him his touches and you're going to get him his yards. That's the reason why he's playing in this game in the first place, is because he wants to break the record for most receiving yards in LSU history. He's now sitting at 2,980 career receiving yards. The record that Josh Reed set in the 2001 season was set in the 2001 season, but it was a culmination of his career in the early 2000s, 3,001. So you need 22 receiving yards from Malik Neighbors to break that record. I think he can probably do that on one reception alone. So you want Malik Neighbors to get his due. You want him to get his yards. You want him to get his touches. You want him to be a security blanket, so to speak, for Garrett Nussmeier, while also acknowledging that that's not going to be there for Garrett Nussmeier next year. I'd like to see that in-game chemistry start being built between Garrett Nussmeier and Shelton Sampson, Jaylen Brown, Landon Ibieta, a guy who has been sidelined with injury for a majority of the last couple of seasons, a guy with a lot of talent and a lot of promise that we just haven't been able to see a lot of because of injury. I want to see more of Kai Prian, whether it's in the passing game, whether it's in special teams. Aaron Anderson, I want to see more from him in special teams. Caleb Jackson and Trey Holly in the run game. Now, we've seen a little bit of Caleb Jackson, and the little bit of Caleb Jackson that we've seen, I love it. I forgot who said it. I think somebody tweeted to me in the middle of the season that he looks like a baby Lenny out there. And I said, yes, he absolutely does look like a baby Leonard Fournette out there. So everything I've seen from Caleb Jackson, I love it, and I want to see more of it. I want to see that rapport and that trust being built with Garrett Nussmeier. Same thing with Trey Holly, who was the 4-star running back in your 2023 class that I think can take an even bigger step in 2024, depending on what happens with the rest of the running back room. So while I want to see, I need to see Malik Neighbors get his due. It's a whole reason why he's playing anyway. But with the thought process in mind that your future, unfortunately, as difficult as it is to say, your future's not Malik Neighbors. I don't know what's the future holds for Brian Thomas. I would probably tend to believe that Brian Thomas is not going to be back in the 2024 season. So enjoy Malik Neighbors while you have, and maybe Brian Thomas if he decides to play in the bowl game. But your future Shelton Sampson, Jaylen Brown, Kai Prian, so on and so forth. These young playmakers that could potentially develop into some of Garrett Nussmeier's go-to guys. It's a great opportunity for Garrett Nussmeier. It's a great opportunity for this coaching staff. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked on LSU your first listen every single day. So we've got early signing day on Wednesday. We'll have a full preview of that on tomorrow's edition of Locked on LSU. Plus, we'll chat with Brian Smith. So that podcast will be up later on Monday night. So you can find all of that on your preferred podcast platform, or you can find it on YouTube. Like I mentioned, we'll be doing a full bowl preview coming up on next week's edition of Locked on LSU. You can find that on your preferred podcast platform and on YouTube as well. early signing day preview, a recap of Brian Kelly's press conference on Monday, and a recap of the final weekend of visits before early signing day comes up on Wednesday. All of that coming up on the next few editions of Locked On LSU.